and welcome to From Z to X with Sean and Evita Duffy, your new podcast from the Federalist, where we talk about pop culture and politics.
That's right. So today we're coming into the election of the U.S. So I think let's talk about what it's like to be a political family. So our family was involved in politics for almost 10 years, 5 cycles. But before we do that, let's talk about what is happening in Wisconsin. And is Donald Trump going to win, or the polls right and Joe Biden is going to crush it in our state? So I'm going to give you my assessment in a moment, but I want to go to you first on the youth vote. So in the summer, after George Floyd was killed, there was protests all around the country, and we had a big protest here in Wausau. 2,000 people came out. That's big for Wausau, Wisconsin. And a lot of your friends with Republican parents, and they were probably Republicans themselves, were out at the protest showing support for Black Lives Matter. I think Democrats thought this was a great way that they can energize and unify young people and suburbanites to join them in vote in the November election. So my question for you is, as you look at your friend base and those who were out at the George Floyd protests, does that mean if they were at the protest for George Floyd that they're going to vote for Joe Biden, or are those still Trump voters? How are they going to fall?
So it's a good question. Like my dad said, I mean, these were friends of mine from high school who, you know, they have family that is still here in Wausau, Wisconsin, and they were conservatives for as long as we were friends, and all of a sudden they were protesting at this Black Lives Matter rally. And I chalk up most of it to people not understanding the difference between Black Lives Matter and then the organization Black Lives Matter. So we all agree that Black lives, of course, matter, just like every life matters. But people don't understand the Marxist roots in that organization. And so I think that the kids didn't know that either. And so they just show up with their masks and they're saying, oh, we think that Black Lives Matter. So I think that a lot of people, a lot of young people, it depends on where they went to school.
Interesting.
So I feel like
high school or college?
College. I'm sorry. So college. I think that I have a few friends who went to high school in rural Wisconsin, have conservative parents, you know, went to places like Chicago, some in California or to the Northeast, and some in Madison. Although Madison can be more 50-50. Madison, the administration, Madison, Wisconsin, UW-Madison, the administration is very leftist. The student body has a loud leftist group, but also has a very strong conservative hold there too. So I think that it really depends on what school they went to, and if they're really buying into it. A lot of kids in the very beginning, because this protest was at the start of the riots, just kind of thought
start of the protest
that devolved into riots,
yes.
Right? They were just protest. They were just trying to say that Black Lives Matter. So I think that those people are still going to go out for Trump because their family is, their other friends from back home are, but the ones that are now going to more liberal leftist schools have actually bought into the narrative and don't just agree with Black Lives Matter, but they agree with the organization and everything that comes with that.
And so I mentioned they believe in the Bernie Sanders socialist movement, the Marxist movement in America, and that's what they want for our future, which I think, frankly, is pretty sad, which goes to the point parents have to raise their kids, inform their kids, educate their kids. If you leave it to these lefty schools, you'll end up with a lefty kid.
And it's not just schools, actually. That's the schools are super important and super influential, but it's also social media. And so, like, a lot of times, there's this huge pressure from like TikTok to Instagram to even Snapchat that this is, if you're not posting about it, if you're not showing up to one of these demonstrations, you don't care about Black people and you're a racist. And
but isn't the news feeds on those social media platforms as well driving left-wing news too?
Right. So yeah. So that, I mean, like we talked about this before, Snapchat news. I mean, the news it has a leftist tinge to it. I mean, there's no conservative outlets. Fox News doesn't have an editorial on Snapchat, but MSNBC and CNN do. So
okay. So let me tell you what's going to happen in Wisconsin.
Yes.
So what's going to happen in our election? So we saw an ABC poll that had Wisconsin down by 17 points in favor of Joe Biden. So I look at that and I throw it away. That's total garbage. We look in Wisconsin, our gold standard polling is the Marquette Law School poll. So let's look back to 2016. Hillary Clinton was leading Donald Trump in the last poll for Marquette by 6 points. The last poll by Marquette in 2020, Joe Biden is leading by 5 points. Donald Trump is doing 1 point better in the Marquette poll. And by the way, the 2020 Marquette poll has Donald Trump in the margin of error of Joe Biden, right? So I think this is going to be very close. I'm not going to tell you that Donald Trump is going to win, I think it's just going to be really, really close. I think it's a 1 point race either way. But I think what's happening is you have an energy with a lot of men and women in this state. This is a blue collar state. People who oftentimes feel like, yeah, we're a close state, we're a purple state, so people, presidential candidates come and visit us during the campaign, but they forget about us. Donald Trump hasn't forgotten about Wisconsin, and because of that, they've seen an amazing economy before the pandemic. We had massive growth. We had more jobs, and we had workers to fill those jobs. We had rising wages, and they love that. Their families were better off. Their bank accounts were stronger because of Donald Trump. And they love, not that he's from New York and the attitude that he has as a New Yorker, but they love that he's fighting for them and policies that work for them. And so as I look at the race, I think Joe Biden is irrelevant. Joe Biden is so generic. This is a race of, do you love Trump or do you hate Trump? That's what's driving each side of the political aisle. And I believe that in elections, not in all spaces, but in elections, love is a greater motivator than hate, which means I think when you look at turnout, this is all going to come down to turnout. What side is going to come out, turn out, and vote? I think the lovers will come out more than the haters. And that's why I think Donald Trump actually has a wonderful shot of winning the great state of Wisconsin. So we'll see. But I don't. Do you agree with
So
that?
so I want to ask you because I've been in Chicago part of the time I go to school there. Now I'm here to vote in person in my first presidential election. But we've been hearing stories, across the United States of people, doing ATV parades and car
Yeah.
parades and boat parades for Trump because, like you said, that it's really, in the Democratic Party it's more anti-Trump than pro-Biden, and then the Republican Party it's very pro-Trump, and so there seems to be a difference in energy for
Yes.
each candidate. And I'm wondering, you've been here more than I have. Well, this is a very interesting area because Wisconsin seventh district went for Obama in '08 and then Trump in 2016. What is your vibe? What have you been feeling in this particular area?
I think it's a really good question because if you look at the 2016 election, I think the media in hindsight said, well, we didn't really understand and grasp the power of the Trump rally, the people that were coming out, the enthusiasm that he had at the rallies. I think in 2020, what they're missing is these car parades, boat parades, golf cart parades. You had the Amish doing a horse and buggy parade. Anything that moves, you put flags on it, and it's a Trump parade. That is remarkable. You have never seen parades like this ever in American politics, and people want to come out. And maybe it's a way that they're saying, I know that the media is not telling my story the way we feel, so we're going to tell it to our community by getting together organically and showing our support for a president who has never forgotten us. And so I think that will be the missed story of 2020, should Donald Trump win, that they didn't pick up on all these people who were like, I love this guy because he loves me. He
Right.
loves my family. He loves America. I think that's what they're missing. And some will say this is just the radical, hardcore Trumpers. I think there's a lot of converts, people who weren't really engaged in
Mhm.
politics, people who've never voted. People are, they could have voted in the last 4 presidential elections, but they never have because they're like, it doesn't matter. I think in this election,
Yeah.
they think it matters, and I think they're going to go out and vote. And I think that is going to be the difference if those folks show up, and I think they will. That's the difference in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. I think Trump's already won Florida. I think he's going to win Florida. Those polls are wrong, by the way. Trump's not down by one. I think Trump's going to win by 3 or 4 in Florida, which makes me confidently saying to you that these polls don't make sense because I know how wrong Florida is.
Right. So I have a funny story. I was in Madison yesterday, and talking about Trump parades. There
Yeah.
was this Trump parade of cars that went through State Street in Madison, which is like the main campus area, and all of the students were angry and booing them. And what was so funny is the Trump supporters loved it. They did it on purpose. They showed up to Madison to kind of just you know you know make these students mad, and they were like honking their horns and waving as the students booed them. And so I think that there's really kind of an indignant vibe to these parades that have happened. They're kind of like, in 2016 we were the silent vote. Now we're like, we're happy and we're proud, and we're gonna show everybody, even if you don't like it, that we're pro Trump. And so I thought that was a great example of the energy of these kind of um you know Trump supporters.
One other point that makes you trigger a thought for me, because on college campuses, it's usually a great Democrat liberal vote, right?
Mhm.
Uh, the Democrats and the professors and the college campuses, they do a good job of organizing college kids to get out and vote on
They'll
election
cancel
day.
class on election day. Yep. Be like,
Yep, get out
go
there,
vote.
go get pizza after you
Mhm.
vote. I mean, they do all kinds of things to get these kids out to vote, and that's a big deal in places like Wisconsin. We have a lot of college towns.
Mhm.
What's interesting is because of the Biden COVID connection, and Biden runs on COVID, and we got to stay in our basement. We can't knock doors, we can't campaign, and we've had a little bit of a spike in Wisconsin for sure with COVID. There's been a lockdown, so the professors don't have kids in class to organize them. They're doing Zoom classes, and that doesn't feel as secure if you want to really push kids on a
Mhm.
political view. And you can't organize kids in one location for pizza and soda and get out and vote. So they've lost this ability to touch college kids. And I think you're going to see the college vote down by 10%, maybe 15% across the country, but also here in Wisconsin, because they haven't organized them because
Right.
of COVID. So though COVID plays against Trump in some ways,
Mhm.
this is going to affect the voter turnout in a very reliable Democrat voter on college campuses. Not the Duffy kids, but other college kids will vote this way. And I think it'll be unique to see how in states where it could be 20,000 votes that decide winner or loser, that will really matter. Am I
Right.
right on that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I the get out and vote initiative on campus is pretty robust. I mean, I feel it more than before, but obviously this is the first presidential election I've been on campus. But you know, it'll be interesting to see if that's true or not. I mean,
Well, we'll see.
it definitely
We
would make
disagree on
sense,
something.
but
See, I think, I'm not on college campuses, but this is,
I
what
mean,
I've been.
every class, it seems like a teacher's like, Remember to vote, remember to vote, remember to vote," and they're canceling class, and they're sending emails, and it's. I mean, even if we're not in person, they're still doing whatever
They're
they
still pushing
can.
it.
Yeah, because they know what the kids are going to vote for.
Right.
So they're
Well,
like,
we'll see.
"Go vote,"
I
because they
think
think it's going to be
the
Biden.
polling shows those numbers are down. We'll see who's right, Evita or Sean.
Okay.
Um,
Well, now we're going to move on
yes.
to something else that's kind of interesting. So we're a political family. We've been through a lot of elections and a lot of election nights. And so we want to talk a little bit about what it's like being a political family on election night. When you are the one who's up for election or re-election, and I want to ask you first, as the candidate, and specifically, what was it like in 2010 when you were first elected? What were you feeling? How was it different from just being a regular person watching it on the news?
Yeah. So I'm going to get to what it's going to be like, for us in this election cycle. But going back to 2010, I worked so hard. I put my whole life and energy and the whole family into a congressional race. It was
Mhm.
7 days a week, 16 hours a day. It was nonstop, and that was for about a year and a half. We did that, and on election day, we were in Ashland, Wisconsin. We came down to Wausau for our victory party. We went to the hotel, and it was unique for us because I think at that time there was 6 kids in the family. So as Rachel's getting kids ready, as we got off our campaign bus, the poll numbers start to come in, and you have numbers of counties and townships that you're supposed to hit, and you're trying to figure out, I'm up in the polls, but am I going to win? And it is, I mean, it's one of the things that you work the hardest at. And you now then turn it over and go, are the voters going to, reward me, or do I lose? And it is one of the most stressful, nerve wracking things that I think a person goes through is election night, especially the first big
Mhm.
one like a house race. And a quick story, after I won in 2010, so we've done 5 of these races. And I want to ask you what it was like as well.
10 years.
10
I
years of
was
that.
10 years old when he was first elected.
That's right. We did our first parade together.
That's true. First
I
campaign.
was too afraid to do it by myself, so I had to bring my 10-year-old with me to do a parade. I got really good at it after that. So did you. But when I was elected, uh, uh, Dick Cheney came in and spoke to our freshman class. So he was just 2 years out of the vice presidency, and he said, I've done a lot of political things in my life. I was, just served 8 years as the vice president of the United States, and the most important win, the most emotional win, the greatest win I've ever had was the first win I had for the U.S. House of Representatives. This is the best win that you'll ever get. You can run for anything else, but this is the greatest. So absorb it, because it's so cool to be part of this institution where there's roughly 10,000 people in the history of our country that have ever served in the House, and you get to be one of them. I mean, it really is an honorable
Yeah.
um, privilege to serve in the House. And when you win, I mean, it is the most crazy, cool, amazing feeling that you get to be part of, this next Congress. So for
I think it's, no,
you,
but especially for you though. I mean, it was the first time that he had ever been to the U.S. Capitol was when he was first elected,
yeah. So
which
my
was crazy.
I didn't go in like the seventh grade, so I went into the U.S. Capitol for the first time in my whole life as a congressman elect. And usually you have to go if you've been there. You got to get a tour guide, and they got to walk you around. I went in and I'm like, do I need a tour guide? Like, no, no, here's your little badge. Go wherever you want. So I gave myself a self tour of the US Capitol. You can go wherever you want. It's your free reign, which was really,
Really
really
awesome.
cool. But for you, what was it like on election night? If you can remember. So what, you were 11 years old at that time?
Yeah, so I would have, well, yeah, I would have been 11 when
Yeah.
you were first elected, so it would have been 2010. I don't remember a ton from the first election. What I do remember was my little brother John Paul, who's now 13. He was a little boy at the time, and he during the speech fell off the back of the stage
On
while
election night,
yeah,
when he's
because
making the
we were
speech.
also all the kids and my mom were standing behind him as he gave his like acceptance speech, and JP fell off the back and then popped up over the stage and was like, "I'm Ote," and then
Okay.
everybody started laughing, and no one like my dad and my mom didn't know why, but it was because of JP who really stole the show. But other than that, I mean, most families, the kids are up watching it on television with their parents, or they fall asleep before then if you're younger. For me, I mean, every election was a party, and so I mean, as I got older, it was a bigger deal, and I would be more apprehensive about who was going to win and who wasn't. But at the time, I mean, it was just like, wow, this is so exciting. I have all these kids around me and my parents, and we would be able to invite friends over to the party. And so it was a fun time on election night for the kids because I mean, for the parents, there's you have to talk to people, you have to mingle, you have to give your speech. For us, I mean, the only real obligation we had was to stand behind you before you spoke, and then other than that, we kind of were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, they were running around the hotel,
Yeah.
hanging out with their friends, a lot of food, soda. It was kind of like a free for all for the kids, and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we did that for 5 years. And so in a congressional race, there's a lot of people who help you out that work with you to help you serve your community. And so you want to have a party for all of them, and you invite everybody in to come and celebrate,
Mhm.
on election night. And so we would put TV cameras up, and we have food, and we have a
Yeah.
stage, and all the assembly candidates and Senate candidates would come as well. But as part of that, as the host of the party, you're walking around, you're saying hi to people, you're making sure kids haven't, spill pizza on their dress, and then you're trying to go check out what are the results, and it becomes very consuming. And so for us, we got to get people ready, all the kids ready in the house, and then get to the party,
Mhm.
which is consuming. Then you're at the party, and so we met like in 2016. We missed a lot of the great TV of watching CNN and MSNBC and people
Yeah.
crying and
Mom said she
shocked.
missed it. She was like so sad.
So we had to try to pull it up on YouTube the next day to see all of the drama
The
of
evolution of the night.
of like, oh my God, Trump's gonna win. And so I missed that. So I'm gonna miss hosting a party and having work to be reelected.
Right.
But on election night, our family gets to sit down and turn on the TV and watch the results come in and experience it like every other American. And I think there's something really enjoyable about seeing how this plays out. And it can be a great, exciting victory night, or it could be met with tears and,
We won't
disappointment
be
if Trump
crying.
loses.
Like, I mean, no, 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 no tears, but it'll be disappointing if he doesn't win.
Well, we'll be sad. But it's going to be fun to watch it. And, hopefully we'll know on election night. But, we might have to wait a few days for states like
Mhm.
Pennsylvania. And we might have to wait for Georgia to give their results. But I think on election night, we're going to know how does Florida perform? How does Ohio
Yeah.
perform? What happens in Wisconsin, Texas, Nevada, Arizona. Those states will give us a pretty good indication of what's going to happen in the states that don't report until a little bit later. So for the first time in 10 years, Avita and I don't go to a party. We sit on the couch and watch the results come in like every other American, and we're going to thoroughly enjoy it.
Buy some Oreos and chips and sit back and relax and watch it like everybody else, which will be interesting.
We'll have a glass of wine. And by the way, the kids can go to school the next day a little bit late because their parents are going to be too tired to get up and get them to school. So
Yeah.
uh, kids like that part of campaign season as well and election night.
All right. Well, I mean, it's been great talking to you, and I'm happy
You
to be
too.
here. It's exciting to vote tomorrow. Everybody else should get out and vote if you haven't
Vote, vote, vote.
already. And we'll see you guys next time.
It's going to be close. Get out and vote. Bye bye.
Bye.